Good evening, viewers, and welcome to another edition of In Conversations. Today, we're joined by Celina Jaitly from Austria. Celina needs almost no introduction. She's an Indian actress, she's an UN equality champion, she's recognized as a film and a beauty icon. Celina Jaitly has been the winner of Miss India and Miss Universe runner up. She's also worked on a lot of issues around the LGBTQI communities. Certainly, she has a lot to talk about. Let's go straight to her. Celina, first of all, let me ask you, how has it been through, the pandemic, through the COVID crisis? How have you gotten by?
Um, Rohit, given the way the world is going, I feel very, very blessed that, this time too has passed. Been through a lot of highs and lows over the past 2 years, but I feel very blessed to be here high up in the Alps during the entire lockdown with my family at the moment. But it is really heartbreaking to see the situation all over the world, in our country, how it's affected the economy, and how it's affected so many millions of people in different way. There are some people privileged like us, and there are some people not so privileged, and there are people who are not privileged at all. So it sort of makes you think a lot. It makes you rethink all your priorities. The things we consider are extremely important for us don't even matter at the end of the day when you go through something like this, you know and how the smaller things in life, which we considered small, really matter to you, like going out, meeting a friend, a person who comes to work at your place every day, your hired staff, the people you see, the farmers who are working, and people who've lost their livelihoods. You don't know whether to consider yourself privileged, or whether to curse the very concept that you're going and you're living in an era where the entire world is going through such a tremendous crisis.
Selena, you rightly put it. We're going through a really tough time around the world, and many of us are very blessed. But the reality is, we don't know how the world's going to change and how long this is going to continue going on. There are a lot of people out there who don't even have basic food. Uh, but many people who stood tall and stood strong have recognized the value of the relationships we have, and how that's possibly the most important thing going through a pandemic like this. Let's get
Yes.
to the part that you have now, come out of, uh, being in hiding, if I want to call it that. You spent many
Yes.
years in the Indian film world, and then you went away to Austria, but you've come back with a web series now, and you've come back with a new release. Tell us a bit about the journey back into the film world again.
Rohit, I started working when I was just 14 and a half, is when I started modeling. I started at a very young age. And uh, all I did was work and study. I never really, and I didn't consider that bad. I just thought I was privileged to have the opportunity to do that. But having said that, I felt that I lost a lot of my life working, as they say. And all I did was work, as I told you before. Then I was very, very blessed to win Miss India. I went on to become a runner up at Miss Universe. I was launched by the great Feroz Khan in my first film, Janasheen, in 2003. And till then everything was great. It is only once the whole fervor of Janasheen stopped, and I found myself pretty much on my own in Bollywood. And it was not easy being an outsider who did not understand the tricks of the trade, and how things function, to tell you the truth. So while I knew art very well, I had a great background, but I had no one to guide. Neither did I know how to. I was also learning the ropes still. So it went on for a few years. I did some brilliant, humongous hit films. I was a part of some very, very big films like No Entry. I've worked with the topmost production houses and directors. But by 20, I reached a point where I realized that, you know, I can't go on working in an environment where I am needed only to for my sexuality or the way I look on screen. I was very desperate to be recognized as an actor who had grown, was growing still, and I just reached a point where I said, I can't do this way things this way anymore. Things have to
Mm,
be a lot more pleasant than the way I was getting. Literally, when you've been working since such a young age, you learn the trait for a certain point, and then you realize sometimes you just got to walk away from things for things to fall in line for you, for them to work for you.
mm,
So I was at a point where I really felt very frustrated that I was not getting the kind of film which recognized me as an actor. I was not getting, and I was fed up of being a sex symbol. There was a slight amount of harassment behind the curtains also going on, which was difficult to deal with. And I reached a point after having worked since the age of 14 and a half that, okay, time to walk away. Activism was taking the first place in my life. And that's around the time I also met my husband, Pete, and he was deputed in Dubai. So I think all these things happened at the same time. I took a break, much to the my mother being very annoyed with me and saying that you have it all on a platter and you're just walking away. Keep a balance. And I, of course, we never listen to our parents, the fools that we are. Okay, and I did not listen to my mom, and I got married, and I started started focusing on my activism. I joined the United Nations and I started working with the UN. And I was an expatriate's wife. So we were in Dubai and Singapore, and I was working on my passion. And we were blessed with our first set of twins around that time. We got married and things. So, I was riding uh, the high. This is the first time in my life that I was doing something that was just for me without
mm.
thinking about, you know, the creative aspect of things or the artist within. I did miss facing the camera a lot, but this was great too. So
Right.
yeah, this
No,
is this
no.
is why I took a break.
I think you make some very two or three strong points here, Selena, and I want to talk a bit about it. There has been a lot of talk around the last few months. We've seen a lot of actors and actresses talk about this, and we've gone through this whole Bollywood crisis, if you want to call it that,
Yeah,
about how some people hit a glass ceiling and they can't get past because you don't belong to the families or you don't come from the same background as the rest of the film world is. And it's not as if people don't get breaks and don't get a chance to make money or get some roles, but the glass ceiling, the real quality meaty roles that one may want to do as an actor to grow, may sit with only a few highly
yeah,
connected. You came from a military home. You came from a military family.
yes.
So certainly not part of the film world, as they call it. Explain to me, when you hear other actors, actresses talk about this as well, to the rest of the world. Explain, when you say it's only for the sexuality, is it the depth of the roles? Is it the amount of money you're talking about? Can you just flush that out for me a bit?
I think it's a little bit of everything. And honestly, I hate using this word nepotism, but it is a very dominant word right now in the news, in the media, and how the industry works. So there is nothing wrong with nepotism, to tell you the truth, because I personally feel that as long as it merits talent, it's fine as long as it merits and celebrates talent. If someone is talented just because they're an actor's son, that shouldn't stop them from not moving forward. But at the same time, the others should get a chance too. But it is not all. Let's just put it this way: that it is not all platter for a person who's from the outside, and children who come from within the industry have to also work hard, but it is easier for them because they are given more chances than a person who is has come from outside, and they are immune to the sexual harassment which does exist within the film industry.
And I think, Selena, you make a very, very, solid point. So the harassment exists, and you know, many people have, openly talked about it. So
Yeah,
uh, I don't let's and I would stay away from, getting into any personal names and people, obviously, but
yeah,
let's get past this and let's talk a bit about your journey out. Was not an easy one either. When you
yeah.
think about getting married to somebody in a different culture, many may look at it, maybe if it was easy for you, but many may look at it and say, oh wow, that's a very difficult task to get married to somebody from a different culture. What was your experience? Tell everybody else about, how.
I come from four generations of armed forces. So, when I met my husband, he was also formerly in the armed forces, or the Austrian armed forces. So I think there was this whole mentality connection somewhere which worked very well. And he was a expatriate, and being an expatriate, it was easy for me to adjust with my husband because we were two different people from two different cultures living in a third country. So we both were adjusting in another country in a very different way. And I think I totally believe in the whole concept of soulmates because I think I was very blessed in this aspect of things. I never had to work to fit in his culture, and I don't think he had to work to fit in our culture because the backgrounds that we both came from. I come from an armed forces family, and as you know that military people move around a lot. We're very used to adjusting to new languages, new cultures. I changed 13 schools in my whole life thanks to my infantry father. So this was not the problem. I think the problem was more of that there had to be some sacrifices wherein career is concerned, because my husband also is extremely established within the corporate world. So we both were coming from very established and good professional backgrounds. So the whole thing was balancing that, what do you call it? It's balancing the careers. He had to support me at times, I had to support him at times. And but once you're married for 10 years, then a lot of things don't matter. What matters is how well you're doing together, how well you go through the highs and lows of what life throws at you. And I think so far I'm so glad that Peter has been there in my life. I don't know how I would have made it through otherwise over the last few years. Yeah.
You went through a very tough phase of depression. I'm embracing that. I know it's not an easy thing to talk about. Will you tell people about, there a lot of people have been, we've been listening to a lot about depression and what it is and what it means. Would you explain from your perspective how tough depression is, and obviously, what made you go through it?
Some people have depression for no reason, and it's medical and explainable only by the medical fraternity. Some people, depression is triggered by circumstances. It could be job related, it could be, some trauma related. In my case, it was more a life circumstances related, trauma related. I lost both my parents, and we lost one of our sons. So when I lost both my parents, they went within a very short time of each other. And in that gap, we lost our son as well. We were blessed with twins, and we lost one of our babies to a heart condition. And to deal with the back to back instance of tragedy was not easy for me. And we already had twin boys who were also, at that time, they were also 5.5. So it takes a lot of courage to be able to go through a tragedy and be there for the little ones that you have created. Because at that age, a child does not understand what one is going through. So I went through an extremely, extremely low phase, because from being absolutely fine to one day to the next day, I was without my parents, from having a being blessed naturally by twins, which is a very unusual one in a million case. Again, everything going fine to we lost one of our babies, and we had to go through very, and it's not just losing the child or the parents, it's the circumstances in which we lost our loved ones were very, very tragic, very, very emotionally draining and traumatic, if I may say so. So it was not easy, and I just spiraled out of control. And I think it all started at the point when I crashed my car in Dubai. And my husband was at that time the chief commercial officer of one of the biggest companies in the world. And he realized that I was going through a he immediately resigned, and he says, okay, we are going back to Austria. I'm moving you out of here. Let's just go back to the mountains. Let's disconnect from everything. Let's get you treatment. I will be there with the boys. And he took over, and I had a small baby as newborn as well. So it was not easy, but my husband and cinema sort of came to my rescue, and I am doing much better than what I was a year and a half ago.
Well, thank you for speaking with us about it. It's never easy, Selena, to talk about, the challenges like these that you may go through in life. Most people will brush it off and not talk about it, as openly you're speaking about it. Uh, Beyond, you know, uh, all of the other issues in life, you've done a lot of, activism, if you want to call it that, or, just being a good humanitarian. You worked for the LGBTQI and sex workers. Tell me a bit about what led you to work for the LGBTQI community.
So, as I told you, I started very young within the industry, in the fashion industry. Began very young. I started modeling at the age of 14 and a half, 15, and I was tall enough, so I became a runway model also at a very young age. And I was exposed, that's how my exposure to the actual LGBT community, QIA community started. And I used to volunteer with missionaries at Missionaries of Charity, just as a small volunteer in Kolkata. I don't even think anybody knew me that time. I was just 15 years old, and um, we would go to the we would go to one of the biggest red light in Kolkata, distribute food, and I would get doctors sometimes, people whom I knew through my father and mother. And my mother was a child psychologist, so I would host there for evaluation of the sex workers and things like that. And that's when I got to know a lot of trans people. And somehow my heart really in the sex trade and over sex workers. And it really broke my heart to see the reality of women, children, trans people in the red light areas in Kolkata and those days I was myself very young child. I was a child. So for a child to see this also, it has a very powerful impact on them. And following which I went into a relationship with a gay man. And that was a very traumatic relationship. And for someone who's just 16 years old to go through a relationship like this had quite an impact. And at the same in my struggling days in Kolkata, there was a transgender makeup artist who became a mother figure for me and would take care of me, and you know is the one who actually made me go for Miss India and other things, and he's no more. So when he passed away, so this is how the story grows. And when he passed away, that's the time, 1 week before he passed away, one of the last conversations we had was, he said that I want to see you married. I hope I live long enough to see you married, because he says I could never see that for myself, and I'm very scared of growing old, Selena, because, and he used to only speak in Bengali. So he says, "Budo hoye jabe to ki korbe? Who will take care of me? I'm an old gay man and nobody's going to care for me." And he used to talk like this, and then he passed away. So I think different incidents in life, and my own fight for survival as a young girl in a society where it's difficult to accept young women who are living away from their parents without doubting their intentions, without doubting their character. was also a personal battle which I was going through. So I think all this led me to, join the movement full on for the repealing of Section 377 from India.
It must make you a stronger human being when you go through, such tremendous, if I want to call it, I would want to even call it an opportunity. These are opportunity situations in life. Does that make you a stronger human being? Does one need to become, take on these things to become stronger?
Rohit, when you're going through something, you never think that, oh, this great life event, except for the death of your parent or child, is happening to me. It's only a few years down the line when you look down upon your life and you see, my God, I went through that, I survived, and what am I doing about it today?
Hmm. Hmm.
Is it just going to be something which happened and I'm going to say, wow, I did that? Then it's like just saying, oh, I went for a vacation to Hawaii. But that's not how I was going to let my life experience pass. For me, it was very important that every time something low happened in my life, something good also happened. So for me, only when I look back and when, like, I'm speaking to you right now and you remind me of the fact that it is something bigger than what I think in my mind, because for me it was just my life going by and various life events happening.
Selena, and I talk about this a lot myself. We have very short lives, and a lot of people forget that. I always
Yes.
look at my life in number of weeks left, give and take a few, right? And I say,
Yeah.
all right, I have 1123 weekends left, and
Yeah.
give and take a few hundred here and there. And if you are going to utilize your life in doing something larger than life, and you're going to utilize each week that goes by in a qualitative manner, you'll possibly land up in a great spot anyways, right? Because you will have recognized you're not going to waste your time doing useless things or wasting your energy on things that don't matter at all at the end of the day. So I think when your life goes through so many experiences, it gives you that opportunity to understand yourself, understand the world around you. And obviously, when you're younger, it may be a challenge to understand it, but when you grow older and you look back, it makes you recognize what you've gone through. Let's talk a bit about the fun stuff today. Where you are today, you're certainly in a great spot. You're
Yes.
sitting in on top of a mountain. Tell me, what makes your day a lovely one? What makes your life happy there today?
The fact that I'm able to now balance, which my mother always told me, that you need to have balance in your life. You can't give up one aspect of yourself for another aspect of life. I did not value that advice at that time, but now I so much do. And I am living that prediction of my mother of finding balance in enjoying my family, my three sons. I have a set of twins and a little 3-year-old rascal, and my husband. I'm an admirer of nature, and my work. I just had a film release. We received phenomenal reviews. The movie is doing very well all over the world in film festivals. I'm working on my next production. So I feel very blessed that I'm able to finally understand. I may not be able to do it all the time, but I understand what balancing life is. And I'm taking pleasure in, as you said, exactly as you said, you know, we think, oh, we will do this tomorrow, or there's enough time. I'm living my life one day at a time and making the most of it. Being grateful.
Do you have advice for any of the young people who are coming into the film world or coming into the world of, beauty and that's how a lot of, in the acting world, so to say, on what they should think about when they're coming into this world and how they should, brace it?
I would like to tell something to each and every one of them out there. Most of them do not give education priority. So that is something you can always do besides being an actor, besides being a model. And it is so important to have that as a fixed deposit in your kitty, you know. God forbid. So this is an advice I would like to give, because I meet a lot of people who are 16, 17 years old, and they like, I want to be a model, I want to be like you, Miss India, I want to be an actress like you. But they give up on every other aspect of their life. If you make it great, celebrate it, work harder, expand on it. But what if you don't? You should always have a backup plan that is there, and believing in yourself irrespective, not to let anyone else dictate the way you feel within. And that takes a lot of personal strength. So working on that personal strength before coming into this line is very important.
You talked about a very important issue, which a lot of people have talked about, the sexual harassment bit. What is your advice to the young, you know, men and women who come to the film world and sometimes have
Yeah.
to, deal with it?
Yeah. See, no one can make you do anything unless you succumb to it. I wouldn't say pressurized into it. You succumb to it. A lot of people I've known who succumb to it, get nothing out of it, get distressed, depressed, and leave and go away. So the thing is this: harassment is something which is going to be on its own level everywhere. I think there was a little bit in school, there will be any work environment, anywhere, you even on a bus, it's possible that harassment takes place there. But are we going to leave our lives, and are we going to give up on everything? No, that's not the way out. So be strong enough to know when to say no, when to say enough is enough, and when to walk out of the situation. It is very important to say no and walk away, and also be ready for the consequences of that, because it's not always a movie like ending. So you have to be, as I said, it's very important to work on the strength within, because in this world you're going to meet I have met great people, and I've also met terrible people. I have met amazing people whom I've trusted who've broken my trust. I have met people who've had just great working relationships with, and that's it, we never connected beyond the set. So it is so important that you work on the strength within. What do you want? And then just stick by yourself, to your principles, your strength. If you want to go ahead with it, that should also be okay, but then stick by it in your heart and mind. If you want to walk away from it, there are going to be consequences. Stick with it. Don't feel bad. Don't berate yourself. Don't pull yourself down. And keep following your dream, because only then do dreams come true.
Keep following your dream. What great advice, Selena. It was lovely having you on the In Conversation show. Honestly, the way you've spoken about everything today, kind of, I think a lot of young people are going to walk away with a wealth of knowledge with it. Thank you, Selena, for
Thank
joining
you
me for
so
In
much.
Conversations, and I look forward to being in touch.
Absolutely, likewise. Thank you so much. Wonderful to
Thank,
be talking to you, Rohit.
thank you,
Okay.
Selena. Bye.